Welcome. This is the For the Love of Comics panel for LumaCon 2022, our 8th annual LumaCon. And I am pleased to present to you the wonderful, amazing youth artists from all around Sonoma County who have taken part in our comic workshop. We have Xander Cunningham. You want to give us a wave? Sebastian, Cami, Emma, and Taya. And last but not least, we have the wonderful, the incredible Gio Benedetti, who has so kindly put this workshop on for the kids. And the For the Love of Comics is selling at Gio's store. Gio, you want to tell them a little bit about the book and how they can get one?
Yeah. My first recommendation is if you're in Sonoma County and you want to get one, go to Brian's Comics in Petaluma and buy a bunch of comics. And one of the comics could be this comic. Brian's Comics is going to stock them. I also have an online store, giobenedetti.com. It's the spelling of my name without a space.com. And then there's a store there. And so you can buy them there. The money doesn't go to me. The money all goes straight to LumaCon. So, and Brian at Brian's Comics has been super generous. Usually stores do consignment deals where they take a big cut. It's like the mafia. They're like, yeah, we'll sell it for you. But Brian's just like, oh, I'm so down for this. So he's just selling it for us so that we can make money for LumaCon.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about the workshop.
Okay, so I'm gonna want some feedback from the other people on the workshop. But the workshop was conceived because I have two kids, and I also love comics, and now my kids love comics. And something has happened in the last 10 years in America where I credit the internet, and I also credit creators that are not white dudes. It's been this really wonderful thing that has happened for graphic novels and comics where the voices and the stories that are being told have finally broken free of the Superman, Batman superhero complex. And there are stories for all sorts of people, all sorts of stories for all ages. And so my kids were finding really cool graphic novels to read and were loving it. I was watching other people find so many cool anime, so many great manga that they can go and find. And people were just into comics. I'm into comics, but making comics is really hard and takes a ton of time. And you need either a deadline or a cheerleader or both to kind of make it happen, in my experience. And so I was like, hey, I wonder if during all this lockdown quarantine stuff, people would be interested in having a cheerleader and a deadline and making a comic with me. And luckily, people were into it. And luckily, the library was able to create the space to offer it. And it all worked out. And these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amazing creators were some of the folks that joined in and made wonderful and hilarious and awesome stories to include in the book.
Absolutely. So let's hear from these wonderful, amazing, creative artists. Who wants to start? I want to hear a little bit about your art journey. When did you start to learn to draw, and what inspired you? Sebastian?
So like kind of throughout my life until about the age of 9, my entire drawing persona and skill was very well below average. But because I very commonly thought of tracing as kind of a cheat for drawing. So then when I came to Petaluma and met a lot of people who were really more artists of many different types, kind of more embraced the art of tracing. And so I've been using that for a few years to master the different hand techniques and stuff that I need in order to draw stuff. And basically just from actually using tracing as more of an aid rather than your drawing as a whole, now I don't really actually need it to draw what I want anymore. And I've been watching since roughly the age of 5 this show called Adventure Time. It's just the craziest, kookiest show about in a world that's basically like ours, except way in the future when everything's been shifted to some weird, different, like, I don't know how to describe in words, but it's just this great show. It's a very comic-y animation, and all the characters are so kooky. So kind of what lifeblood of my creativity for a lot of years has been a mix of D&D, Adventure Time, and throughout the quarantine, LumaCon, actually, because it's just there were a lot of programs that really helped me kind of embrace the more creative side of what I could do in my solitude.
Absolutely. And that tracing thing is a great tip. Great idea. Who wants to go next? Cami?
So I kind of started drawing when my sister started drawing because she had a friend who was a really good artist, and then she started doing it, and I was like, this was the time where like I copied my sister on a lot of things. I was like, hey, I want to do that too. Plus, I'm generally just like kind of a creative person. I don't constantly have ideas flowing through my head, so I was like, okay, art is a good way to kind of vent that out. So yeah, I started drawing, and like I read a bunch of web comics and watch cartoons or other animations and just like steal all their styles and just kind of put into the amalgamation of my own. And yeah, so it just kind of all culminates into what I want to create.
Awesome. All right. Emma?
I don't know when I started drawing. I know when I did my first digital drawing, which is back in like early 2020 when I was like 11 years old or so. It was it was kind of a
that's
mess.
so cute.
But I basically was inspired by my dad. He's a professional artist, and so I kind of started drawing because of him, but I also loved like comics, and I really loved like anime and stuff, so I just drew and stuff.
Excellent. Taya?
Okay, well, my mom paints a ton and also is a preschool teacher, or was. I don't remember if she's going to go back after the quarantine, but I've been drawing for as long as I can remember, and my mom has been painting and drawing for a long time. And I think like 4 or 5 years ago, she made like a cover to a book that our friend George made. And
awesome.
that inspired me to, like, we have light tables so you can trace actual things on paper. I actually might have mine somewhere around here, but I don't know where it is. So my mom would take like multiple different photos and put them on top of each other and then trace them to get the hang of things, as Sebastian stated, to get like the hand movements and stuff. And then I started tracing some of, Gio has one. That's huge. Mine is not that big. But like I would take some of the stuff that my mom would trace and then trace that to get also the hang of like how to draw some of the things. And it just helped me get better at specifically people, because that was what was on the front cover. And now I can't draw animals that well, but I can draw humans really, really well.
That's excellent. Xander?
So like I started drawing like when I was really young because my dad and I used to go to like Pete's Coffee in the morning and like on the weekends and just draw for like a couple hours. That's he had a sculpture major, I think. But when I was born, he started like drawing again. So we drew together a lot, and that's how I kind of learned to draw with him.
I love all this familial connection over art. That's amazing. I love it. So I want to hear about your comics. Let's go in order, shall we? We got Sebastian, Avenues Abound. Let me see if I can get to the right one. Ooh, I guess I should have. There it is with the scary squirrels. I'm getting there. There we go. So tell us about Mr. Squirrel. What's going on in Avenues Abound?
So Avenues Abound, when I was trying to think of a story, I struggle with creating dialogue. And so, well, realistic dialogue for that matter. So, I first thought of a way I could try and avoid dialogue, and I thought of the animal kingdom. But then, I tried to figure out a way once I had already gone way too much into my story to try to reincorporate it, so that I could kind of understand my characters on a deeper level. So, at this time when I created the comic book, we started working on these EWPs for school, and my middle school teacher in 6th grade named Mr. Watt.
What's EWP? For those
extended writing project. It's like these long stories you write throughout the whole year, which we didn't write throughout the whole year. But essentially, my teacher, Mr. Watt, he was telling us about a story he had made in the past, and he was talking a lot about this character he had made that was a flying squirrel in a city or park that was completely insane. I forget, like, I think he had an addiction to like coffee or something like that, and so he was kind of a cuckoo character. But I really like the idea of some kind of quirky, weird animal being incorporated into my thing. So I took kind of the idea of a squirrel because, as I've seen and as you've told me with your squirrels flying from the trash cans to get your lunchbox story, they can be very crafty. So I kind of based my main character off of the red squirrel's crafty weirdness. And then for more of the story, I watched a lot of gang movies, which is kind of weird, but and New York has a lot of interesting history about the gangs and stuff. So I also wanted to get some of that history into my thing. So I took kind of the more dirty side of the animal kingdom in New York, which there isn't really an animal kingdom in New York, but took the more dirty side, pigeons, and I decided to give them kind of the root of the crime gang. And then as I just wrote it, the reflection of the human civilization in like the animal kingdom just kind of helped create a plot for itself beyond just me thinking of something really weird and random.
That's amazing. I love that. Okay. So if you haven't checked out Avenues Abound, you guys got to check that out because that sounds amazing. Next, we have Gio's comic, For the Love of Books.
I love books. I told everybody this in the workshop that as I was trying to prepare for the workshop, the thing that I think is really fun is, and it's also on my map, where coming up with ideas can be pretty easy. So I gave myself this walking task where I had a little notebook in my back pocket and I made myself come up with 5 ideas on every walk for a short comic. And then when you have a lot of ideas, it becomes way easier to pick the good one and the one that like really speaks to you, versus if you only have one idea and you stick to it right off the bat, then it can back you into corners and you can end up not loving it and really struggling with it. So I had like 10 or 15 different ideas, and the one that was really inspiring to me was this Don Quixote type character, because I was reading the book Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Finally got all the way through it because there's a great new translation out there. If you guys like classic literature, I'd tried it many times before, but I could never finish it. But the new translation, so good. So I was reading that book, and so I was really inspired. I'm inspired anyway about the idea of imagination and the magical inside of our everyday lives. And so I was able to combine all of my loves, comics and books. The book that I was reading, The Lord of the Rings features. I started lifting little quotes for the deep Lord of the Rings nerds out there. There's some straight up quotations from it that I had to pepper in. So it was just really fun. And that was the idea. And then the execution was laborious and difficult, but I'm really happy with how it came out.
Excellent. Next we have Taya, past, present, future.
Okay. So this is going to be a great way to start this off, but I am a huge procrastinator. So
you are a pro at the procrastination. Yes.
Yeah, and with procrastinating comes awful time management. So I basically just completely forgot the comic existed until like each Saturday for like the first, I don't remember how long it was, but for a while, to the point where I had a little bit over a month to complete the comic. And I had the script written down, but I too am also a huge perfectionist and I hated the script. So for a little bit of it, I just decided to go off script, which made the ending kind of just ended. But each of the characters I need to pull it up because I forgot what they look like. So, but each of like the characters represent a different part in which I have seen in like the people that I hang out with or myself or my friends. Is that it? I don't know where my comic is.
It's really far back. But
here it is. Okay.
There's quite a few artists and not everybody is here today, so
yeah. But each of the characters like represent, not like everything in the book represents something that I've seen or something that I have, or someone that I have been friends with. So like as it shows as the main character, who is the one with the two different color hair. At the time I was like really wanting that hair, so I just decided to put it in there. So yeah, but that character basically represents a part that a part of me that just wanted to like change from the last part. Like, I don't know if any of this makes sense, but basically that was kind of a time. Wow, that sounds weird to say, but that was kind of just a point where I was leaving the old cringier side of myself and turning into a more better version of myself on the inside. So
okay.
Yeah, so I guess the burning house just represents the fact that I was letting go of my past self, more or less. And then the second character just kind of represents like the main character's best friend. And I guess like the new coming of the new person I wanted to be. So, yeah.
Love it. Story of metamorphosis, if you will. Next, we have Xander through the wormhole.
Okay, so like everybody's is like really deep, and it's like about mine's just kind of I like sci-fi a lot, and I was like I'm watching Doctor Who, which is pretty cool. So that like time travel thing,
totally a over here.
I wanted to add that in, and I had an idea, and I kind of
just ran with it.
Yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. You know, not all literature is supposed to have some deeper conceptual meaning. Some of it's just for fun. And you need both. right? I like it. And I love the Doctor Who inspiration. What's your favorite Doctor Who character? Because I gotta know.
What do you mean? Like which doctor?
Like
or?
anything. Which doctor, which villain, you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I like the Daleks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. But I think the adipose are my favorite. They're so cute. And they would suck my fat away. I don't know if anybody else is just inspired but I am. And last but not least, no wait, second to last but not least, I'm so sorry, Emma, is Cammie. We have her story, which is Tchaikovsky's Mansion. Did I say that correctly?
My computer kind of crapped out a little bit, but like Tchaikovsky's Mansion, which is fun. It's hilarious to see anyone try to pronounce it properly. Which, first of all, I realized I didn't fully answer the last question, which started drawing in like 4th grade around that time. But yeah, anyways, so when I always have like a bunch of ideas going around my head. So when I saw this, my English teacher actually posted a little announcement on my Google Classroom. It was like, hey, there's a comic thing going on. If you're interested in it, sign up here. And I was like, hey, that seems fun. I want to do it. So I did sign up for it. And then the 10-page limit came up and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to really cut down some of my stories. So around this time, I was really drawing a lot of I was really inspired by cats because I knew someone who was kind of also going through the same phase. And I started drawing cats as well. And I was like, cool, this is fun. So I kind of put all those ideas together and create this big thing. In my teacher's bio, in my teacher's bio or my author's bio, you can actually read a bit more like in depth about that. But yeah, it's just like all those ideas, and I'm very much like kind of taking normal things and making them weird. So like instead of it just being a normal cat, it's like cat with 12 sets of legs or an arm coming out of its back. So it's just like, so I got to like kind of do that and able to put it together and do this neat little story that I spent like 10 hours working on the day before it was due. So yeah, very fun.
That's amazing. So clearly you're a cat person, right?
That's what we're talking.
Any inspiration from Captain Marvel? Doesn't she have like a cat with like?
Actually, it kind of was that. I saw Captain Marvel. I was like, ooh, the cat's good. But I actually have the main couple, the Tchaikovsky's couple. I actually do have the art piece where they came from because a lot of the like 3 of the characters came from former art pieces I did, except well, one of the cats are kind of like I came up with the concept for it and I really went through with it. But one second, let me grab it real quick.
Excellent, yeah.
In the meantime, people have said some really interesting things. Okay, sorry, Cami, I was just going to say something in the meantime, but this is something I want everybody to think about. How much art and how much of the art that you do is you trying to avoid the things that you're not good at? And then how much of it is trying to get better and conquer the things that you're not good at? It's like totally... somebody mentioned something along those lines and I was like, oh my gosh, convicted. Okay, I'm done.
Well, so we had a school project for my art class where I had to use perspective. So I did a little kind of cottagecore scene. And you could see the little Tchaikovsky's couple right here.
I love the little bee.
Yeah.
Oh,
so wow. You can also see one of the cats that are kind of like very have a little feature in it as like stale cats. Yeah, main couple. So
you guys were all so talented. It just gives me so much anxiety at the idea, but inspiring. Last but not least, we have Emma's comic, Unangelic.
Yeah. So basically, main character Esme. I don't even know if I say the name of the book, but she is basically, I'm showing you the like basic idea of my comic. She's just like a single winged angel and stuff. She's like, she feels like she doesn't fit in, so so she goes out to see where like to see how she get down to earth and stuff, but then she just falls and she somehow survives, but then she gets down there and she realizes she can't, nobody can hear her, nobody can like see her or anything, and so she's like, oh no. But then at the very end, someone there's like this person that walks up and it's like, hey, are you okay, and stuff like that. And then yeah, but I don't know. I I'm kind of a sucker for angst stories. So I was trying to incorporate that into my story, but then I realized it was too much, so I tried to cut back on it with some comedy. Cause like, cause at one point she talks about how she misses her houseflies, cause those were her only friends, which is like kind of a comedy, but also kind of sad. Um, yeah, but I don't, I don't know if there's a deeper meaning to it, honestly. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, but this, I speaking of procrastination, I waited to the like the last 2 weeks to do like everything but the first page, which was honestly not the best idea, but it all worked out because I chose to do a 10-page comic, which was probably not the best idea.
I bet your hand did not appreciate that. So you guys have all touched a little bit on the process, and the process is also explained a little bit in the book, which I think is amazing. Make sure you go get it if you have not got one already. So I want to hear from you. What are your favorite and parts of the comic making experience? What did you hate, or find the most difficult? Talk to me about the process. We got thinking hats on. Cami.
Well, for me, just the idea process was very easy because, as I really stated, I already had a bunch of ideas in my head. It was just getting it all together and keeping it short enough so I can make it into one comic. Because I had like my original script, I ended up cutting a bunch of it just because I didn't have time to really do it all the way. So if you find my original script, it's probably very different, but just the sketching and inking process was quite annoying. But once I found out I could do it digitally instead of traditionally, I was like, yes, it'll take us long.
I have a question about that. I'm going to save it until everybody said their piece about the process, but I'm very curious about that. So ignore me, but keep that in mind.
Xander.
So I made my script really long, but I didn't have enough time to do the entire thing, so I had to cut out a lot. So that was kind of frustrating, but also kind of relieving that I didn't have to do that much.
Okay. Sebastian.
It took me a second to find the unmute button. I haven't been on Zoom in a while.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a very good thing. So for the comic process, when creating it, I really enjoyed actually making the script because like I love actually drawing and everything, but the workloads were insane. So I really enjoyed just, as kind of Cami already said, having all these ideas finally kind of come together into this one somewhat symbiotic relationship. But there were a lot of cuts I had to make. Anyways, so like the 10,000 hours of background I gave wasn't even mentioned. That's kind of my fault though. And the hardest part about the comic making process for me was kind of just like the workload, because when it was going on, and most of the people in like high school, middle school will very strongly relate to this. We were getting the end of the semester workload, kind of that huge amount of like 5 different grade dependent projects all due in like 1 week. And so I had roughly 55 hours of comic book making that had to go adjacent to all the work for school. And it was just kind of a weird solitary beyond like the actual quarantine experience that like I couldn't stop to hang out on Zoom. I had to like stay in contact with the comic book as kind of like my best friend at the moment, because if I didn't, it wouldn't have gotten done. So it was just a very strange experience to be kind of voluntarily cut off like that.
I totally relate to that, having been a teacher. Believe me, the teachers on the other side understand because we have to grade it all. Keep that in mind. But I also want to point out to you the prequel stuff, just because you had to cut it now doesn't mean it has to stay cut forever. You could do a whole prequel comic. I'm just saying. All right. Okay, Emma, I saw your hand.
The comic process, I remember I spent so long trying to come up with an idea. I had this idea before it even started, but I was thinking about it. I'm like, how would that work? How would it play out? How would this happen? How would this happen? I remember like I stayed up like every night trying to write the script, and in the end, I didn't end up writing it because I could not figure out anything. So I just did it. I just like figured it all out as like figured out it all out as I was just drawing and stuff. And I really if I had the opportunity, I would definitely do this again, because and this time I would try not to procrastinate. No promises, but I remember I just like stayed because I did mine digitally as well. I did mine on my mom's iPad. So my mom's a teacher, so she needed that for a lot of the time. So it was kind of hard. So like for small portions of the day, I would just be like, not small portions, for like hours on end after my mom got home, I'd just be in my bed just like drawing until like late at night and stuff. And but the most rewarding part of the process was definitely just seeing the finished product and like, wow, I actually finished it. I mean, it could be better, obviously, but I'm really proud of myself that I was able to finish this comic because I put in a lot of work into it and I did not expect myself to finish.
There you go. Yes, definitely learn what you can improve on, but accept that you did an amazing job. You guys are, oh my gosh, I could not have done it at your age. Just absolutely amazing. Right, Gio?
Yeah, I mean, I want to let Taya say her thing, and then I'm gonna say a bunch of stuff at the end. But I'll pick up that piece that Emma just mentioned because it's so hugely important. But I'm gonna pause now. Taya,
talk to us, Taya.
Okay. So the script, I didn't like it so many times, and I've written like so many 2-3 page stories and then just stopped for like years. Well, not years because I haven't. Oh wow, okay, no pressure. Okay. But yeah, so I just like will start writing scripts to books or literally anything, and then just write a few pages and then just stop because I suddenly hate it or suddenly have no inspiration. And then I finally found a script that I like more or less could deal with, and then I lost it. So,
physical copy, you lost it?
Yeah, I don't know where the paper went. So I too just kind of drew it as it went, but tried to remember the majority of the stuff that I did. And then it would have been really smart to write it down, not on an actual physical piece of paper, because my room is really messy always. Yeah. And I can't keep track of anything in my room because I'll immediately forget where they go. I have nowhere
That's a sign
space.
of a creative mind, I believe. How many of us are messy? Yes, I'm messy.
I have so much nowhere space.
Yes. Emma has that great idea. Yes, Google Docs definitely has been a lifesaver since it was invented. I remember like starting a Word document. I'm sure Gio can relate to this. Starting a Word document, forgetting to save it, and then being like, oh Oh no. But Google saves it automatic. Yay for Google. This is not a paid advertisement. Okay. Gio, the knowledge.
Well, I mean, like the process for me was basically the same as for everybody. It was a ton of work and just trying to manage time and life and trying to step up to the standards that you have in your brain versus the thing that comes out of your hand. But I think that the thing that I was trying to stress from the beginning of the workshop, and that I still, the main thing I wanted to come back to, especially after Emma's comment, was when you sit down to make something, when you finally sit down to make something, like the idea process is this beautiful, it's like when you're falling in love, everything's perfect. You don't know the other person yet. So you get just like, it's all in your mind. You're like, oh, this is great. It's wonderful. It's like having a crush. That's the idea process. And then as soon as you want to make something real, you're like, oh my gosh, but listen to how they chew. Oh, I hate that. Or like, oh, I can't believe that annoying thing they do when they're in the car. Why are they humming? I can't stand their humming. They always, like all of the realities of your idea manifesting itself in the actual world, like trying to negotiate that process of the ideal, perfect idea as you saw it. And then it's like, all of a sudden now, like through the dirt and the mire of, how well can you communicate the idea? Like, where are your skills at right now? Like, what did you imagine it? And then what's it going to actually look like? It's devastating. And that's when so many ideas die. And that's when so many relationships break up. It's like, I can't deal with the reality of what this actually is. And so it's really hard. I don't mean it like I can't say it and make anybody do it, but it's an idea to like just try and remember that you can only make the thing that you can do right now. So when it's time to make a short comic, it's not like you can't approach it like, hey, I'm going to come and I'm going to make the greatest comic that will ever be made, and it will be my greatest comic, even though everybody's brain does that exact thing. As soon as you're like, I'm going to make a comic, it will be the best comic. I will be the greatest. It will be the best. It's going to be beautiful. Like, you just have to make the one that you can make right now. And if you're slammed schedule wise, the one that you can make right now might be 3 pages stick figures. Like, but you still have to make the one that you can make right now, because in order to make the one that you actually want to make, the one that you dream of, like that one is totally possible, but it is never possible first try. First pancake, the griddle's not hot enough, you didn't use enough butter, it's going to be weird shaped. Your first pancake is never going to be right. So you have to do all the ones that you can physically do that will not make your expectations, and you have to look at them and be like, I love you anyway, even through all of your imperfections, because I know that eventually one of the ones that I can physically make in this time in my life with what I have going on and what I have in my skill set is actually going to be the one that I look at and I'm like, oh crap, I just made the one that I wanted to make. It took me 20 years. It took me 10 minutes. It's a 2-panel comic, and it's literally the best thing I've ever done. Like, when you come into it and you put the pressure on it and you put the preconceived notions on it and you put the expectations on it, you just start burying your creativity and your ability to complete a project. And the cool thing about this workshop and what I love about it for myself, I'm not even like speaking for anybody else, it made me make the comic that I could make inside of a time period. Is it the greatest comic that I ever hoped to make? No. Is it the idea that like I've had in the back of my mind, like, oh, this would be so rad as a comic? It's not even that idea. It's just the one that I could make inside of this time with the skills that I had. And then I made it. And like, I don't remember who, I think Emma said it too, where like, I love picking up those 10 pages of Bristol board and I just like hold them in my hand. I'm like, I did this. It like feels good. Like just holding it in your hand. So, gosh, I totally understand the procrastinate, the pressure side, the perfectionist side, like all of those pieces. And like that's to me what, not necessarily this workshop. It doesn't have to be a workshop. It doesn't have.
Oh, Gio.
Sorry, my hand hit the mouse. It doesn't have to be the workshop. It doesn't have to be something that's structured. But what I see is that I do need community and I need support around me if I'm going to actually make it from one end to the other. Because I'm going to draw my page and I'm going to think it sucks. But then maybe Cami, who on my screen is right over here, she looks over and she's like, "Hey, that's really cool." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe it's really cool. All right." And then maybe I can keep going. But when you have a community of people around you that are supporting you, it's what you need to actually make it through to the end. So yeah,
absolutely,
like all of that stuff.
100% agree with you. The community that I saw you guys form too was just so amazing from the outside looking in. I know that a lot of you are still hanging out and talking to each other over Discord, among other things. And I know that we got something going on at Petaluma Coffee and Tea right now until the end of January, or till the beginning of January. So we want to get into those projects a little bit more. But Sebastian, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, this isn't even close to as important as like the process of failure and rebirth of ideas. But Zoom audio cutting out was a rough event that happened almost constantly during the period of our meetings that I thought should be mentioned. And I just want to say that like it's surprising how all of our comics turned out so well when we couldn't even hear the directions we needed to know. I just find like that we pulled through the difficulties of Zoom to be pretty close to as inspiring as actually finishing the comic book.
That's a teaching style that I've developed where while I'm teaching, if I have some really important things, and I'll pretend like the audio's cut out because I really want everybody to have to work, come up with their own ideas.
That's amazing.
That literally just stressed me out so much. I actually thought you were being serious.
Sorry. So sorry. I mean, that's like, I crave being able to be in a room with people because like the physical energy you need to be, like the fact that there were 20 people and we couldn't look at what the other people were doing, that we couldn't stoke each other out on the process, that we couldn't like just like, "Oh my gosh, I love what you're doing," and be there physically. It has to be in a chat. Like I appreciate what Zoom can do for just being able to connect outside of a community. But what I crave is less audio technology failures and more direct community interaction.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about next steps. Quarantine's about to end, hopefully. I mean, for many of us, we are going back out into the world. Anybody got any next projects that they got going on? We're going to end with Gio, but I want to know other people. Cami?
Well, recently at school, someone gave me a sketchbook. Someone gave me a very pretty looking sketchbook, and I had this like whole fantasy idea going in my head for a long time, and I was like, okay, this will be the book that I put it all in. So I've kind of just been starting with like, map stuff and like different like specific kind of cultures of the different continents and whatnot. So yeah, very exciting.
I'm so excited to see what your future holds, Cami. I want to I have a feeling you're going to have like a real novel in you. And I cannot wait. Sebastian?
So I'm not sure if you guys know, but there's this really cool program run by like, this local hero called My Town is Magical. And it's got some pretty cool stuff. It's got some pretty cool stuff. It's like magical reportings on Petaluma. Actually, some of you might know the person who runs it. His name's Gio Benedetti. But so he has all these great he has made a lot of really cool like investigations on magical happenings and mysterious things that have gone on in Petaluma. And so I kind of got into that looking at some weird stuff that was going on around me, like before summer break last year. And so since then, I've just kind of started a journal where I sketch random little journal entries about weird things. And so right now, and Taya knows this because they go to the same school as me, but I think there's a pack of 3 to 5 gremlins that follow me around everywhere. They steal my erasable pens and then give them back to me, but they give me an extra one too. Like I'll go into my 5th period American history class, and when I go back to put my erasable pen in there are 3 pens instead of 1. And like other stuff has been happening too, but that's one of the most common occurrences.
I love that. Taya?
It's the pencils. I have like 50 million pencils, and I bought a box of 10. Sebastian's gremlins are coming after me as well because we hang out too much.
They've been infestating all the common places me and Taya hang out, like their house, my house, and our core class.
Nice. Did you two know each other before the class, or did you meet as part? Okay. Just curious. Anybody else got anything going on coming up? I know some of the people that couldn't be here today, like Elizabeth, who did her comic on ballet, couldn't be here because, well, she's in the Roanoke Park production of The Nutcracker. So check those things out. Xander, I have to point this out because Xander was one of the only ones. Was he the only one that did his own autobiographical picture in the book?
He may have been, although we got there was one. Blues is autobiographical. If you see Blues lounging on a dragon,
gotcha.
That was the other self-portrait.
But Xander's was the first to come in, and I just think it's awesome that you chose to draw your picture. And then Cammie, she included her little cat character behind her in the book. Just so you guys are such amazing creative talents, and I just want to say how much of a pleasure it was to get to know you guys over this process and to see the amazing things that you were able to create. I mean, come on. And Gio, I know you got them together for something at Petaluma Coffee and Tea over December. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, Petaluma Coffee and Tea asked if I wanted to do an art show November, December, and I was like, art show. This was right when we were going to get the first printing of the book, so I was like, that was my world. So I was like, I've got an idea. So I pitched them the idea of, can I bring in the artwork that the creators of this really cool anthology did? I'll put some of mine up as well. We'll get the make a cartoon idea came to mind for getting people to get involved and make cartoons with me. Yeah, so now we have art hanging up at Petaluma Coffee and Tea from people that made comics. I think, Taya, I'm not sure if we got any art from you. Did we get any art from you? I think everyone else here is represented at the little art show. Yeah. Hey.
Next time.
So that's happening through the end of the month. And then the anthology, we finally got the second printing together. That finally shipped and arrived at my house the other day. So that is restocked at Brian's Comics and through me. I just sent out the first shipment of the pre-orders. It's been really good. And what's really exciting is because of all of the good stuff that have the Argus Courier wrote some articles. Oh, I hope some people here got to see the Argus Courier article because Clark Miller took time with the book and he wrote comments about almost every story that was written. Like, it was just this really beautiful, insightful person who like took the time to actually get to know the work that everybody did. So because of those articles, I've gotten to hang out with more art planning type folks in Petaluma, and we're trying to figure out a way that we can get for the love of comics as a class to exist in part as part of the enrichment after school offerings for the school district, so that yeah, and like it would make things affordable for people. And yes, I'll at the end of recording, I'll put a link to the article up in the chat. But so I'm excited about that. That still has to get figured out, but like basically people want to draw and drawing is fun. So I'm just trying to figure out how to get the people that want to draw together in the same place, because as much as the internet is great at connecting people, being around other humans that do the same thing and like the same thing is the best. That's why comic book conventions are so fun, because like you're inside of like whatever the world is at your high school or your job or whatever, your family, and you're like, why am I the only one who thinks this is funny? Or why am I the only one who's experiencing life like this? And then you show up at the comic book convention and you're like, oh my gosh, these are my people. Where have you been? Why are we all separate? So just really wanting there to be that feeling more often, because like during COVID, like just being stuck at home and just like life in general and crisis after crisis, it's like you can't be alone out there. You got to find your people and do cool things with your people. And that makes life rich and fun and enjoyable. So that's the idea.
Speaking of cool things with the people, LumaCon 2022 is January 29th, 2022 at Lucchese Center. We're going to have everybody here, and we're trying to do it as a little bit more parsed down this year. We're going to have Brian's Comics, probably most likely, weather permitting, the 501st, local authors, local artists. Everybody's going to be out there, but we are limiting inside to 900 people. It's going to be ticketed for inside. There will be some outside portions, so make sure you sign up for your tickets when they go on sale. Tickets go on sale January 3rd. So look out for that, and we look forward to seeing everybody there. Anybody else got any last comments before we end this? All right. Well, I really appreciate. Oh, Sebastian.
Sorry to raise my hand a little late, but
no, it's okay.
I just wanted to really thank you and Gio for actually running this. It's just really nice that you guys did this for us.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's inspiring, you guys.
My final comment is just for everyone here, but also for anyone that happens to make it this far through the panel video, is just like participate. I think that even as much as we get intimidated by seeing with the people who we admire, we see art, and sometimes it can be intimidating, and rather than inspiring, sometimes it can shut down. Now that there's this published book, and there's everybody here made these awesome stories, and it looks nice and it's beautifully published. Like the worst thing in the world would be for anybody to see that and be like, oh, well, that's for somebody else. That's not for me. It's like, no, that's not the point. The whole point is you just start. Every single person, every single creator, every single comics person that you ask about, how do you get into comics? How'd you get into the comics industry? How did you become like the person who wrote the script for the Marvel movie? Like the only way to draw, the only way to get into comics is you just have to start doing it. And you start doing it where you're at, and then you get better. That's it. So I would just hope that this book would inspire people to do that more, and then we can do that more, and then we'll do that together, and it'll be great and really fun.
Absolutely. Let's end it with a big old shout out. LumaCon, ready? Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Everybody. Oh my God! All right. Bye, guys.